Welcome back to the Thrive Over
Powered by
45 podcast with
Riverside
me, your
FM.
host, nutritionist Stacey Nicole Smith. This is the space where we talk all things weight loss and wellness for the woman in perimenopause and menopause. And today we're talking about a really popular topic, and I think you're going to be happy about it. We're going to talk about why cutting carbs is not good for weight loss in peri and menopause. And I know most women, especially now, us women over 40, have been on a low carb diet at least once in our lifetime. And I know now the fad is keto. Back in my day, it was Atkins, and it's the same concept, right? To eliminate carbs. Now, one of the reasons they became so popular, there's two reasons actually. One is when you initially eliminate carbs, you will lose some weight. And the reason is simply because carbs hold water. So when we initially get rid of carbs, we drop water weight. That's it. And inevitably, when we start eating them again, we will gain the weight back. And I'm sure you've experienced this already. I'm pretty confident in that. Now, the other reason is there's two types of carbs. We've got good carbs and bad carbs. And the bad carbs gave all the carbs a bad name. So we're going to go into a little bit of the difference of the two. I think most people know the difference, but we're going to touch on that briefly. And then we're going to get into why it is essential to have carbs when you are trying to lose weight in peri and menopause, and just for overall wellness in general, as well as lasting weight loss. Nobody wants to lose weight and then gain it back, right? So we're looking at long-term weight loss here. Now, the two types of carbs, most simply, we've got simple carbs and complex carbs. Simple carbs simply means that the fiber's been removed. That's it. So those are your processed carbs, and those are things like crackers, pastries, cookies, that sort of thing. Those are your um, simple carbs, your processed carbs, and they spike your blood sugar really quickly and crash down again. Then you crave more, and that can really lead to fat gain. Now, we also have our good carbs, and those are complex carbs, which are simply carbs with fiber. That's it. And because of the fiber, it slows down the absorption of those carbs into your system, which is going to give you a more steady release, and it's not going to have the energy up and crash and subsequent cravings that the simple carbs have. So, those are the two different types of carbs. Now, you may have also noticed that when you have gone on a low carb diet, you may have felt miserable. And there's good reason. So, carbs really affect our serotonin levels, and serotonin is responsible for our moods, and it also helps with our sleep. But additionally, you feel deprived when you can't have them. We have this tendency as humans in human nature that we want what we can't have. And so when we eliminate them, not only is our serotonin levels dropping and we legitimately are feeling moody and low, but we're feeling deprived and we want something that we feel that we can't have. And that just sets us up to feel miserable. And it also sets it up to be short term as well, which again is not what we want. We don't want to be continuously going on diets. That in itself is enough to make you miserable. Now, when we talk about carbs specifically for women of our age, I'm 51, so women over 40 in perimenopause and, of course, menopause with these hormonal changes. When we get into our 40s and start experiencing these hormonal shifts, you may have noticed one of two things. Either A, the things that you used to do to lose weight are no longer working, or B, maybe nothing changed and suddenly you're gaining weight out of nowhere and you can't understand why because you haven't changed anything. So, I'm going to explain really briefly part of why that is. As we're entering into perimenopause, basically what's happening is our estrogen and progesterone hormones are starting to decrease. At the same time, cortisol, our stress hormone, is starting to increase. And cortisol is that hormone that is famously known for putting fat right on the belly. And that, of course, is that menopause belly that you may have heard of, or you may even be experiencing right now yourself. Now, here's the thing with carbs carbs can help to regulate cortisol. Yes, that is great news. So when we decrease carbs and we go on a low carb diet, this can actually increase cortisol. So when you're feeling frustration from going on these low carb diets that maybe worked for you in your 20s and 30s, and they're not working now, there's one of the reasons why. Decreasing carbs is seen as a stressor by your body. In response, your body's going to increase cortisol, stress hormone, putting fat on your belly. So it's doing the opposite. It's having the opposite effect of what we want to have happen. Now, if you're not already sold on needing carbs, we've also got thyroid. So, thyroid runs the show when it comes to metabolism. And our thyroid needs glucose from carbs in order to function effectively. Low carb diets, listen to this one. Low carb diets can suppress thyroid. Think about that for a second. So, when we are, even if it's dropping calories too low, but especially when we're eliminating carbs, again, it's having the opposite effect of what we want it to have happen. We touched briefly on serotonin, but I'm going to touch on it again here because it's super important. So, carbs help our body make serotonin. Serotonin is amazing because it helps regulate our mood and sleep. So, as we were talking about, when you go on those low carb diets and you're really miserable, this is one of the reasons because serotonin regulates our mood. We all want to have a happy mood, and especially at this age, we are more prone to mood disturbances such as anxiety, depression, a little moodiness. The carbs, complex carbs, are super important for regulating our serotonin and our moods. Additionally, it is also really important, the serotonin, for our sleep. And as women in peri and menopause, our sleep can already be disrupted. So this is really like a real double whammy here. So, one of the things we can do to improve our sleep is to have some nice, balanced, complex carbs with our dinner. That's going to help our sleep because if we were eliminating carbs, it's going to affect our sleep negatively. And now this turns into a whole other mess. We don't have enough sleep. Guess what that messes with? Our hunger hormones, leptin and ghrelin. So you probably experience this. I'm pretty sure everyone has experienced this at least once in their lifetime, probably a lot more. When we don't get enough sleep, you may have noticed the next day you're having food cravings, you're probably grumpy. But it's true. Our hunger hormones aren't signaling properly when we haven't had enough sleep. So basically, our satiety hormone that tells us that we've had enough, leptin, it is a lovely hormone. It's not signaling properly. So we could be eating plenty of food and it's not telling us we've had enough. On the flip side of that, we've got ghrelin, which is the opposing hunger hormone, and it tells us we're hungry and it's not shutting off, or it keeps producing too much and saying, you're hungry, you're hungry, you're hungry, even when we've had plenty to eat. So, no sleep also means increased cortisol, that stress hormone again. So, real quick, carbs help us produce serotonin. Serotonin helps our mood. Serotonin helps our sleep. When we don't have enough sleep, our hunger hormones are out of whack and we have increased cortisol, the hormone that puts fat on the belly. I hope this is starting to come together and make sense for you. Now, another really important element, and this will be the last one that I touch on today, is blood sugar. As women in peri and menopause, with the change in our hormones, this can also trigger another change, and that is we become less sensitive to insulin. What this means most simply is, again, I'll refer back to when I said there was, two types of women, basically, the ones whose the things we used to do in our 20s and 30s to lose weight are no longer working. And then there's the other camp of ladies where you haven't changed anything. And then you suddenly start gaining weight and you cannot understand why. One of these reasons is a reduced sensitivity to insulin. What this means most simply is that when we eat, our food is taken up into our cells to be utilized as energy. Insulin helps shuttle that food into the cells. as we're going through these hormonal changes, we can become less sensitive to that. So instead of our food being utilized as fuel, instead it's being stored as fat. So one of the goals is we want to make sure our cells become more sensitive to insulin or remain sensitive to insulin. And one of the things that does this effectively is those complex carbs, that basically the carbs with the fiber. And the reason they do this is they just slower the release of sugar into the bloodstream. Now, if you were eating the bad carbs, the simple carbs, they turn into sugar right away. And the more they try to get into your cells, the more they're burning out that insulin response, and it's going to make it trickier for you to lose weight overall. The slow, steady rate is really going to help with that insulin resistance. So basically, this means we are helping our body utilize our food as fuel instead of storing it as fat. I hope that makes sense. Now, additionally, just as a bit of a bonus, the high fiber foods help to feed our healthy gut bacteria. And my gosh, gut health is everything, the cornerstone of everything, and it is really involved with hormonal production and just overall health and energy levels in general. So, just to give you an idea of some of those foods you want to be having, and keep in mind, just because it's a good thing, there is, in fact, such a thing as too much of a good thing. So, you always want to be aware of great portions, but having things like sweet potatoes, beans, lentils, things like that, oats, quinoa, those are really good complex carbs with fiber. And these are things that you want to be incorporating every day. You want to really avoid the things that are mostly just packaged, they're processed. The fiber has been stripped away from them. And again, they're going to really mess with your blood sugar, your insulin response, something that tends to be a problem for women at our age. So the type of carbs matters very greatly. The good news is you should be eating carbs every single day, and it is going to help you to lose that weight and probably eat more than you may be doing now if you're severely dieting on a low carb diet. So that is very, very good news for you. Now, I hope you found that helpful. I do episodes like this every week. So follow along, press the follow button to be notified of the newest episode releases. Please check the show notes for more information on all things weight loss and wellness for women in peri and menopause. And of course, if you have a friend who's struggling on a low carb diet, please share this episode with them. Thank you and have the best day.